Welcome to the Foil Life Podcast, where we talk about foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy these great sports. All right, Kev, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Right on. How's it?
Pretty good.
It's not like you're real far away. It's not like you're real far away right now.
just in the recording studio down the hall. You got Maui Foil House stuff everywhere. Anyways, thanks for the studio, and thanks for bringing us out here. It's been a really fun introduction to actually getting on the water in Maui. It's my first time actually winging and windsurfing here. So it's been a nice little tick off the bucket list, which has been pretty cool.
Right on. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. You definitely scored some crazy good conditions.
March was awesome. I was almost out every day at Ka'a mainly, and just getting used to that wave over there. But there's some pretty cool people out of there. Like I know the Steve Meyer, owner of No Limits, is always sailing out of there. Kane and Gabby and Kane's dad's always there, and a bunch of other guys I'm starting to get to know. It's a super fun crowd, and that's when it was like, this wave is actually, it's pretty friendly for the most part, right? It's pretty friendly beginner spot. Yeah. It's
world class. I learned the other day from Mickey Eskimo. He said that Ka'a means rolling wave. And so it's appropriately named, and we love the Ka'a Foil Park.
Yeah. Oh no, that's been a super fun intro into it. And I got uppers and lowers nailed windsurfing in 35 knots. So that was cool. 2 for all of us windsurfers out there. But
excellent. Was that a party wave for you?
No, it was there. They only caught a few of them. I think the swell from that weekend was kind of fading off, so I didn't get much, but it was still pretty fun just getting my feet back in those saddles and getting past the reef, which was my biggest thing that I was looking forward to because I hadn't done that yet. So pretty stoked about that. But hey man, like Maui Foil House, we're gonna dive into that. What is it? Where is it? How did it get started? But I know you've been in this industry for quite a while and you have a heck of a lot of experience, so we're kind of just looking forward to get to know you a bit more.
Right on. Well, I've been on Maui about 24 years now. I decided to move to Maui because I was going to be the first kite surfer electrocuted for foiling for kite surfing in Florida in the summertime, chasing thunderstorms. So I decided to make the smart decision and move someplace where it was consistently windy and a lot less electrical storms to feed my my kite surfing addiction. So anyways, I moved to Maui and just, changed my whole lifestyle from being a, sedentary computer jockey and doing video editing. And I was also at that time, I was the editor of Kitesurfing magazine. So the addiction was real and to the wind sports. So I just decided that, I had to feed that addiction all year long. So I moved to Maui and just did a, I guess hardcore riding for 15 years straight and just really, push all career aspirations to the side and to the back. And I just learned, all the wind and waves here in Maui and just kind of lived the waterman lifestyle on a budget.
Wow. Okay. When did you kite for the first time and how did they get you hooked?
I had been windsurfing hardcore in Florida since 1984. And, but I was pretty much addicted to wave sailing. So I was only getting like 5 good days a year and I lived right on the ocean. So I was aware whenever the conditions were right. And then when kitesurfing came along, it was a game changer because I could go out in way less wind, have fun in the little, 1 to 3-4 foot shore break because we didn't have these big fins in. The boards were lighter. I started riding surfboards back then. And it just became the 7 mile downwinder was a standard evening session. And so my wave days went up, I went from getting like 5 good days a year to getting, 100 days a year with my friend Greg Mashide and Latham and all the boys from Cocoa Beach. It was a great experience. But just wasn't enough. In the summer times when the thunderstorms came through, it was kind of life threatening.
I can imagine. Yeah, that
Yeah.
move to Maui, like how was that for your first year here? That would have been quite the change.
Yeah, when I got here, I felt like I was going to be, like all my legend heroes were here, and
Hmm.
Robbie Nash, Pete Cabrina, all these people I had met before, but I felt like I was going to be, getting to ride with these people and watching, learning the whole thing. But it turns out that those guys had real jobs, were building brands, and you didn't get to see, you saw them on the water occasionally, but they were working
Yeah.
hard, and I was on a different path of just riding hard. That was really where I was doing.
Nice. Well, any kind of highlights looking back at your early kite surfing days here? Because there's so many different beach breaks or certain with different wave spots, and anything stand out?
Well, I think my focus was getting good enough and feeling qualified enough to ride at lanes in Hokipa, and so I kind of got in a
Mm,
lot of trouble being a early adopter for those places with the kite surfing, and there was a lot of resistance among the windsurfers for people
mm.
kiting at Hokipa. So there was that whole side of the story. And other than that, though, I was always looking for the days when there were no windsurfers and no surfers out, and I was like, that's the
Hmm.
day I got to go.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
I ended up going out on some really crazy big days and getting some crazy beat downs, and you know just breaking my arm and doing all sorts of crazy things that a lot of time, most of the time, was by myself.
Really. And those were early kite days as well, right? So nowhere near the same security as you have now.
Yeah, most of those were in the early, pre bow kites and pre SLE kites. So they were the kites pulled like trucks, and you better be prepared for a gust.
So I guess this all contributes to the vast amount of experience that you have. You were learned through those hard days, and now they're significantly easier. Those waves are not easier, but definitely the gear is a heck of a lot better. How did you get into editing that magazine? Just as an offshoot.
Well, I had my own magazine from 1984 to 1992, where we traveled the Caribbean and the Southeast United States covering windsurfing. And, the windsurfing
All
industry
right.
went through some highs and lows. Advertising budgets came and went, and, but it was a great experience. I mean, I got to travel down to the Caribbean. I met lots of people, friends from the Caribbean, Aruba High Winds, Curacao Pro Am, the Dominican Republic events. Got to meet a lot of the pro racers who came from Maui to the Caribbean to do the big money events in the Caribbean, and it was great. I mean, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I didn't make any money, but it was a great experience, and fed my wind addiction at that point in time. So after that,
Hmm.
I just got doing creative direction for America Online, and had my own advertising agency doing web development and interactive CD-ROMs, and so I stayed in with the creative stuff, and then went to when the opportunity to become the editor of Kiteboarding magazine came up, I kind of jumped on that, and that was a quick stint that was right at the cusp of kite surfing, and coming to the forefront as a new extreme sport, and I was, like I said, obsessed. So I
Hmm.
got my wind addiction, my wind fix, and so I was. There was a lot happening. People were having crazy experiences, and people, as the editor, I was like right at the forefront of getting to see all the new developments, and talk to all the top pro riders, and all the new equipment changes. It was great.
Yeah, like it's an awesome way to connect your passion with a little bit of work and see where that takes you.
Yeah, that was the impetus for. I mean, I was here in Maui covering the Red Bull King of the Air in 2001 when that event got canceled, and so it was the writing was on the wall to come back to Maui after that.
Now I know you got a couple different businesses, but before we hop into that, how'd you start foiling? Like, when did that journey begin for you?
I actually bought my first foil from Rush Randall. We were underneath.
Whoa.
I was like, I gotta get a foil, and so I bought one of the first original aluminum foils from Rush Randall. It was underneath the runway at Kahului Airport. It was, and he was like, he's looking up at the sky as the plane goes over. He goes, "Look at the foil section on that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." But anyways, I wasn't ready for the foil having to wear boots because I crash a lot. That's my modus operandi for when I learn a new sport, and not being able to swim was was above the threshold of the risk I was willing to take, because if you once you unclicked from the old foils, you're at the mercy. You had these weights on your feet, you had these snowboard bindings, and it was just a risk I was unwilling to take. And so I played around with doing some different experimental things with foils back then, but then I needed the cash, so I sold that foil. And I watched the sport really closely from 2002 to literally, like, when some of the first foils from France started coming to Maui, where they were able to ride without boots and bindings, and we're using more foot straps, and that was the game changer. But it was really only a couple French companies, and the equipment was super expensive, and it was in the early days of foiling, and I knew I wanted to do it. It was just a matter of waiting for the foils to come down in price. And then Julian, my friend with Liquid Force, showed up with the first production Liquid Force foils and was just doing some amazing cool tricks in super light winds when nobody else was able to kite. And I was just like, sign me up. I immediately became a Liquid Force dealer and brought into Liquid Force foils. And I think the Liquid Force foils predated Nash foils, Cabrina foils, predated all the companies. They were the first production, reasonably priced foil. It wasn't super performance oriented. And of course, I found the top end of it immediately, like just get going as fast as you could. Then the thing would just blow up. So, yeah. But it was a great experience. I rode those things. I got to the point where I was making my own custom foils to adapt onto their system.
Oh,
and
right.
Yeah, so I was making boards in my garage here in the Maui Foil House, and I was making custom boards and custom foils with a friend. He had a CNC machine. We were making molds, and I was using a jack and doing compressed molds. And I was riding my own foils on the Liquid Force equipment until the day I met Armstrong on the beach at Kanaha. And he goes, "Here, mate, try this." And I was like, "Right on, okay." Like, I was game to try anything new with foiling. And I immediately got on the Armstrong, the early stuff, and I was like, immediately I could do things on his foil that I couldn't do on mine. And so I was like, all right, and so Army stayed with me a couple times here at the house, and he brought his girlfriend at the time, who later became his wife, and we became friends. And I believed in him, and I believed in his system, and I still do. And so that's what I ride exclusively. And I consider it to be the best engineered foil equipment on the market.
Speaking for those people that are just on audio, Kevin has a nice little backdrop here with some Armstrong stuff. That was actually the second foil that I rode as well. I started on
my new baby.
Cheap one. Yeah.
I love the mid-length. I'm a mid-length addict right now. Everything's all about the mid-length.
Oh, nice.
You can't beat the mid-length.
Yeah, so my buddy Tom, who's living in Martinique right now, convinced me to hop on to Armstrong, and that was the foil that I learned the most on. And I had it up until last year, I think, or the year before. And yeah, it awesome equipment, and Army's just so amazingly stoked that it's fun just to hang out with them and chat and see what's going on. They charge hard now, but he told me that he took so many years off competing and racing and having fun that he had to now focus. So that's where all this great gear is coming from.
Yeah, I did the same thing. So I know exactly what he means. I call it pre-tired. I pre-tired, and now I'm a working man again.
That's fair. So when do you kind of come to the conclusion that you wanted to take your passion a little bit further than most, and then let's say work on Maui Foil House or work on your other businesses that you have here going on in Maui that are wind related?
Well, my other brand was Malolo Hawaii, which Malolo means flying fish. It's this one right here. And so, I kind of came upon that when I was doing some cruising in the South Pacific. And I was just trying to figure out what the next brand was. I mean, one of my other brands is Kite Hawaii, but Kite Hawaii is kind of like, I didn't want to name my boards Kite Hawaii, so I wanted a brand for my boards, and so I did Malolo Hawaii, and so everything kind of revolved around that. It's my one of my original T-shirt designs. It's Surf Fly Glide, and that predated foiling, so it was like still.
No way.
So I just combined my graphic arts and my ability to work with my hands, and started making boards. And I didn't make very many. I made them mostly for myself. Learned a lot. Learned I didn't like itching, and I didn't like glassing, but I did it. I learned how to do it. And so anyways, it's been a process of learning what the usually building boards had to do with getting what I wanted without on a budget, so I just did it myself. And then everything else is kind of revolved around just being in the water all the time, and offering up services to some travelers who come into town, and meeting people at the beach, and making friends. I've got friends throughout the world now. I love it. And, hopefully in the future, I'll be able to do some more traveling and some strike missions to places, and I'll look on my phone and I'll see who I know in those places and reach out to them, and we'll meet again.
There's so many fun, I guess, foiling, which we've talked about in the show a bunch of times, is opening up so many cool and new destinations, and traveling is significantly easier than windsurfing, even though we still love windsurfing. But going back to you, what is Maui Foil House all about?
Maui's kind of an expensive destination, but it's world class, and that, it's got, consistent trade winds, and, the trade winds create the downwind foiling experience. Now, all winter, like October through April, May is, just world-class waves. Probably some, every day you could say it's better than most places in the world. And so I bought this house. I've lived in this house since 2009 with roommates. And then during COVID, the opportunity came up to buy the house, and I was in a position to be able to purchase the house. It needed a ton of work. It had been a windsurfing rental for 30 plus years, and it was falling apart. So I convinced the owner that I had the ability to purchase it and fix it. And he insisted that it had to be fixed. I couldn't. It wasn't a tear down at that, although some people would have considered it a tear down. So I've spent the last 5 years literally rebuilding the house from the ground up, and refinishing it from the inside and outside, and I got it to this point. And it's I just want to offer people the experience of being able to use this as a base of operations. We're right in downtown Paia, for people want to stay for a couple nights or a week, or get guided lessons or even unguided lessons, and just come with their suitcase and then rent the gear from me if they've already got experience, or take a quick lesson, let me check them out, and then guide them on some of the different great places to foil in Maui. There's so many different things to do that my specialty is wave riding. And I
Mhm.
don't expect anybody to, go out and ride waves like I do, or where I ride. But, I do meet rippers from all over the world that come, and, they're qualified, and it's great riding with people from all over the world who come and recognize how, what a quality place Maui is for wind and waves.
Yeah, such a special scene here, and the people at Ka'a, when I've gone, they've been extremely friendly, and they help you with whatever it is that you need help with. So it's been kind of fun. I've been going with the evening crew because normally like everybody gets off work and they go for catch a couple waves then. But yeah, that's a pretty fun service actually, because you do get to be social and meet so many people and learn more about them and find out how they found this passion. And a lot of them, let's say they're coming to Maui and it might be maybe their only trip here or only 2 or 3 trips here. So it's really important to be able to help them through that process, because a lot of them, they might just do it once, check it off their bucket list and not come back. So that's kind of a
Sure.
cool
And yeah.
opportunity.
And then also, I met Cash as a young man, a young kid, and I met him through, my son, um, and then later on when I learned he wanted to foil, he reached out and I hooked him up with Armstrong, and that's been a super gratifying experience, because I mean, just the other day we had this enormous swell, one of the biggest swells I've ever seen. I've got some photos here where
Yeah, if you want to screen share, that'd be fun
Cash
to
and I
see.
went out Pier 1, which was an unusual, it was so big that we were able to go. Let's see, this is going to switch here. We were able to ride some just enormous waves. These are some of the shots of Cash
Whoa.
at Pier 1. And
So
thanks to Jono.
Cash and I, like Cash's episode, just came out last week, and we talked about this on the show. So it's kind of cool timing that we get to talk with you about it again. But
Yeah, Cash is unbelievable. Like I find it incredible. Like in a situation like this, I think I might be just out of frame, but I'm over here on the shoulder looking back at him riding these waves and just in astonishment with my eyes wide, just like going, oh my God, this kid's incredible, and we're so stoked for Cash and all his, accomplishments as a world champ,
yeah,
two-time world champ, and then, so it's pretty amazing to see, his foil surfing, and specifically windsurfing to such high levels. And there's a shot of the old man just playing
there
it
you
safe.
go.
Look,
Yeah, right, man. You're
run,
not playing it
running
safe
for
if
the
you're out
shoulder, running for the shoulder, basically.
Attaboy.
Just trying to survive. Cash did have did total a wing on that session, so, and I didn't. So
Oh shit.
but then Cash got the goods like that, and I did not get the goods like that. So we're gonna
Yeah,
call
that's
Cash the king right now. I mean, he's definitely doing things that nobody else is doing when it comes to wing foiling, and I think that's just a testament to his his skill and his willingness to do new things, and his lightning fast cat reflexes, I guess.
and his passion. Like I've talked to Cash on multiple occasions, and I asked him what was the driving force, and he loves it. It's for the joy of it. And that's what allows him to be creative and to come up with different ideas and then to push his boundaries like that. But he's definitely a passion and joy oriented person, which I think is super important when you're in these conditions. I think that stuff actually keeps you safe because you're charging for the right reasons. So I definitely believe that there's something that keeps you a little bit safe. If
let's not call it safe. Let's call it calculated.
Safer. Calculated.
No,
there you go. That's the word I was looking for.
I think that's the word. Is that Cash knows where what his level is, and he's calculated in his he might be less calculated if he had to pay for all his gear, but for now he's getting gear, and Armstrong is happy with his pushing the boundaries. So I think between South Africa and his world championships and everything that he's doing, everybody is just like blown away by his ability to read the wave, read the conditions, know what his limits are, knows how far he's willing to push it. Like one of the first examples, like when he got the cover of Foiling magazine, I was actually out that day at Hokipa with him, and I was like riding next to him, and I'd see him come in at full speed, and then he would do he'd boost the huge air as he's coming in, and then sometimes the wave closes out, and sometimes the wave shoulders off, and I could see it in his eyes. In midair, he was calculating if the wave was going to close out, and if the wave was going to close out, he would sheet in and land on the backside of the wave, and if the wave wasn't going to close out, he would open it up and land on the wave face and make the land and stick it and keep going. And that cover that's in right behind you, right there in the office, is that's at least 3 years old now. So he's doing that kind of stuff. He's doing that kind of stuff back as a young Grom before he'd ever done his first competition. So yeah, he's a unique talent.
What's it like with riding some of those? Because obviously you bring in a years of experience that is like, you can't, even though you have a lot of skill as a kid, like you need that breadth of experience and all those variety of different conditions. And you end up being a little bit of a mentor for kids. That's just kind of the natural aspect of us when we get a bit older. But what does that feel like to ride? Well, a little bit, right? Like I would say that there's like, if he can do it, that old guy can do it. Maybe I'm gonna go for it. And then they bring in their cat-like reflexes, and I'm like. Yeah. Wow, that was cool. I'm not trying that, but good on you. Well, I talked to Tom. Obviously,
I gotta pay for my equipment. I'm on the self-sponsored program. I gotta pay for all my equipment. In fact, the other day, on that big day, the next day, I had $1,000 day where I dropped a kite at Hokipa, destroyed a bar and lines, and lost the kite. Came in on the rocks and was like, "Yep." That was $1,000 day, and then went down to Paia and had a great session that evening and survived without any accidents, So it's like I still, and just, I think last weekend I had I destroyed a wing in the surf. It was a little bigger than I thought. I didn't chicken jive when I should have, and I just, fell down in the surf and destroyed a $1,000 wing. So it's not free. There's no, pushing the boundaries in the wave. So I am as Kai Lenny called people who play it safe shoulder soldiers. And I consider myself a shoulder general. I'm not just the soldier. I'm the general out there. I'm all about getting to the channel.
Oh, that's fair. Looking back and all those years of experience, like how does that make you feel to be in this epicenter of all of this with all this new action? You've gotten to see the start of kiting. You've gotten to play in the start of foiling. Like looking back, how does that make you feel a little bit?
I love it. I think it's kept my passion for the sport. Like I was starting to get a little bored with kite surfing. Like, the only thing that drove me for kite surfing was kite surfing in the waves. And then all summer long, there was no waves. So it was just like, I was starting to get a little bored with kite surfing because I really only rode a surfboard. But then when foiling came around, it just reinvigorated my whole, love of kite foiling, of kite surfing, kiting, then with a foil, because I was crashing all the time. I was trying to learn new stuff. I was really, loved the I called it the unicycle on the water. My foiling with a kite is riding a unicycle on the water and flying using the helicopter to pull you and then flying the helicopter as well. So it's really, and then there was all the racing thing that was happening. I was never very good at racing, but I I did enjoy, trying some of that stuff and experimenting with that and pushing limits and watching the equipment evolve. It's been great. I can't imagine, not having been an early adopter to all of these sports.
Do you think that'll contribute to the success of Maui Foil House and camps and lessons? Because you're coming in with all the do's and don't do's and all those kind of life lessons as you learned it all.
Yeah, I do have a breadth of experience and countless stories about
Yeah.
how things can go, how things I call them a cascading series of failures. I have countless stories of cascading series of failures that lead to like, ending up on the rocks and, getting pressed onto the reef and all sorts of things that normal people don't get to experience, unless they actually experience it. So I would say that, there's a great breadth of experience, a lot of common sense about safety precautions. Nobody here on Maui and in the community wants to see anybody get hurt. We've heard all the stories, we've seen the stories, we talk about it, and everybody's pretty precautious. And if you're a qualified waterman, you're always thinking about safety. And Jesse Richmond's a perfect example of that. Him and Patri, they're two of my favorite, kite surfers in the world, and they are super safety conscious when they do the crazy stuff that they do at Jaws. I've done some unconventional. I think I'm the only foiler to go up to Jaws and ride Jaws unassisted. But once again, it was just a baby Jaws day, and I did the rode the shoulder, and kept it pretty conservative. So, I take my chances, but they're usually pretty calculated, where I'm not getting into the critical part of the wave. And then just the early adopting of the wing. This is me photobombing Kai Lenny back in the early wing days. Yeah, so Kai's great, and it's been fun to watch him grow up and all the multiple sports that he's mastered so quickly. And this last one was a world record. Like 5 sports in one day was just incredible. On that big sport, I was like. I mean, it's just like, it's hard to name them all, but there's definitely 5 of them, and it's he's just a mutant out there.
And such a nice guy too. I met him finally in person for the first time at the Pro-Am. Little shout out to Maui Fin Company for the hat and for all of that. We did went and saw them there, but just a nice guy, genuine nice person, and family oriented, but Jen just loves to rip and continuously push the boundaries, and started so young and so passionate and skilled that it's amazing to see how he got here. But he got here with a lot of help and support, like a lot of the legends and stuff. It's amazing how everybody in the community kind of steps up and wants to help you get the most out of your experience, which I think is a cool thing that's offered here.
Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities for anybody who comes here to push the boundaries of being a waterman. And Kai, there's no greater example of that than Kai and Cash, and the kids who are pushing the boundaries of these new sports that were pioneered here on Maui. Not always, maybe the sport, the sport might come in, and then it goes through a dormant stage like foiling did back in the day, where Kite did it as a young kid and Jaws, and with the boots and the whole. And then the sport kind of went dormant for a little while until the development happened, where the foils got better. And so it's been a super gratifying evolution to watch. These young men, and all the watermen on Maui, and the envelope, the boundaries of these sports being pushed, over the last 22 years that I've been here.
And now the wave season's kind of wrapping up. Downwind season is starting soon. So that'll be kind of another fun adventure to do that. It's actually not as scary as I thought it would be. And the waves aren't as bad. Like you can have let's say ka'a, and you can go out and baby stuff, and you can actually learn to intro here, which is something that I didn't even think existed, because I thought it was just too advanced and too extreme, but it's actually not. You can play with whatever levels that you want to play with, which is kind of the fun aspect of things. Are you looking forward to downwind season? I think you're in a couple got into a couple races, right?
Yeah, I'm doing the whole Triple Crown. In fact, I'm probably going to add the Oahu race coming up. So yeah, no, I've been doing those races. This will be my first year doing the M2O, which is going to be exciting, and I'm looking forward to all these races and pushing the limits. I'm going to do everything with a wing. I'm not that good of a downwind paddle foiler, so I prefer my wing and hand. I'm a sailor at heart, I guess. So I prefer the speed of the wing, and Army bringing some new equipment for me, to new foils to test out. But last year I had a pretty good run of events with the downwind performance 635 or 655 or something like that. That was a good combination. And Aiden with the Armstrong guy from New Zealand is just super fast. He smoked the whole fleet, and all the starts that he did as far as the M2O and stuff like that. And he's just an amazing sailor. So it's not the equipment. I can't blame the equipment. The equipment's plenty fast. It's the dog, not the equipment. So I'm gonna be mid fleet, obviously, but there are some old guys like Alan Cadiz and Ken Winter and Alex Aguirre. But Alex is probably doing the paddle thing. But anyways, there's some old guys that I've known for a long time that are super fast, and I just I kind of just have to watch them walk away. But now it's just for the personal experience of doing it. And 64 years old, and it's I'm feeling it every year more and more.
64, man, and I couldn't even keep up with you out there. There you go. Good for you.
Well, the more you hang out here, the faster you'll get.
I think that's the way. Well, hey Kev, I really appreciate you coming on, kind of sharing a little bit about your history and then how long you've been here, and also introducing like Maui Foil House. Thanks again for everything you've done for us. For people who want to get to know you a bit more, follow you, what are your handles and website and stuff for people at home?
Yeah, I'm so terrible at self-promotion and social media stuff. But basically, I believe I have a MauiFoilHouse.com where you can do inquiries if you're going to be coming to Maui and you need some equipment, or you just want to do a self-guided tour, or you just want a quick intro to the spots, so you're not going in cold. And then foil.house is one Instagram handle that's going to start getting more and more posts on it, and we're going to be doing some strike missions to some high quality surf wing foiling and wave foiling spots around the world, including Chicama, Costa Rica for tow foiling, Ecuador for tow foiling, and then also the South Pacific. We're going to go to Fiji and do some strike missions to some of these places. When I say strike mission, it doesn't need to be huge, but it does need to be windy. So we're going to, for me anyways, I gotta kind of look and see what the wind forecast looks like, but not necessarily for tow foiling, but it's just like, I really, I've traveled to Indonesia. There's some exciting places in Indonesia. Foiling there is really, is pretty exciting. And Mr. Bennett's and all those guys and Kai and all those guys have proven some fantastic conditions there. But, if anybody's interested in joining in on an organized trip to some of these places, we'd love to hear from you. And then, just reach out anytime that, anybody's going to make a trip to Maui. We've got some studio apartments available, and we've got connections with people that have full houses, and happy to help anybody, organize their trip. And then July is downwind foiling month with the 4 races. And, we'd happy to help people organize their trips or rent equipment, or, come a month early or come 3 weeks early and do some training before the races, so you don't get gassed at during the races. Definitely take some training, and Armstrong crew will be coming back to Maui for these races, and we're happy to support teams in any way we can.
Well, hey man, what's the forecast looking like today? You going to be able to get out for a little rip maybe this afternoon or?
Yeah, I hope to. It's usually like work all morning, and then around 3 o'clock I start getting antsy and looking at the trees dancing out the window.
Nice, nice. Well, hey, thanks again for joining us. And anyways, well, I guess we'll see you on the water. That's pretty much what we're gonna
Yeah,
say.
right on.
All
Thanks,
right,
Luke. Appreciate
bye
it.
everybody. Absolutely,
Aloha.
you're welcome.